2, 1, and 3, 2, 1 for me. And hello, everybody. I am Jim Freund. This is the monthly New York Review of Science Fiction readings. We are still not person to person because I'm too old. No, I'm older. I'm a diabetic. They say don't go to crowds, so I'm not going anywhere near the criminal courts in New York today. I think that's advisable for anybody and everybody. But I was so pleased to hear from Tor Books. This is a new imprint, I'm pretty sure. Why don't we put Cassandra on? That way I can ask her questions directly. 1 and boom, there's Cassandra. Hi.
Hello. It's been forever.
Yeah. Oh God, yes, I have missed you. What has it been? About 5 years?
It's been about 5 years at the very least.
Yeah, because you left town. You're always gallivanting somewhere around the world.
I now live full time in New York. If that helps.
Okay, well, we're going to have to do something. Get together.
That sounds so ominous. Somebody help me.
No, not like that. Go for drinks. Come visit. What borough are you?
I'm up in Queens, Astoria.
Oh, okay, very good, very good. So you actually hear the call for prayer. Now, that's a new thing. In Astoria, there are 5 mosques. And as of this week, they are for the first time putting out the call to prayer
really?
at the appropriate times of day. It's the only place in New York City where they're doing it. And it's in Astoria, and there are a lot of very happy people.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. I just read about it in the newspaper like on Friday or something. So first, let me introduce she who shall not be seen, and that is Barbara Krasnoff. She is engineering and about to take off the little scroll on the bottom. And it's just going to go zip like that. And amazing how that works, right? But Cassandra, I don't even remember where we first met. It was probably at a reading, either KGB or at a New York Review of Science Fiction reading.
I think it was at one of your readings, yes. And then
Okay.
I think you asked me to come on the Hour of the Wolf.
Yes.
After that. I think so.
Yes.
God, the pandemic has taken so much in the way of like understanding time and place.
It really has. I have hardly left home in 3 years.
Oh, wow. At all?
Yeah, well, that's, as far as I'm concerned, the pandemic isn't over. I know people who are still getting COVID and all that. Barbara and I are caregiving to a 97-year-old person, so, and I do a lot of the cooking and Barbara visits there. Mm-hmm. And so we can't afford to pass anything on.
That makes complete sense. Jeez.
Yeah. So we are very, very careful about that. But for those who don't know Cassandra as we do, her author profile at Goodreads, which is still Amazon, right? Cassandra Khaw is an award-winning game writer. That's like your first and foremost thing. I think of you as a prose writer, but you're primarily a game writer.
It is my day job. I've been working in games for, I think, close to 15 years now.
Wow, yeah. That to me is new, by the way. If I slip up, just, walk through the computer, just go and zap me. Because I do not always get the they, them pronouns.
I appreciate it.
Correct, so. But their recent novella, Nothing But Blackened Teeth, was a British fantasy, world fantasy, Shirley Jackson and Bram Stoker Award finalists. Not bad for one book, right? Their debut collection, Breakable Things, is now out. I didn't see that one. I saw the novel. I didn't see Breakable Things.
Oh, it's the short story collection, actually. It came
Yep.
out from a small press. Yeah.
Yeah. But coming up, you've got 2 more books coming out this year. And one of them is The Salt Grows Heavy, which is a great title, and a good book. And even though, as I know you know, I don't necessarily go for certain kinds of horror. but this is good. And you've got a project in the fall with Richard Kadrey.
Yeah. The Dead Takes the A Train.
Yeah. And you told me about that, before the pandemic. And I said, great, we'll do something together. And then you ended up doing it at KGB.
I know.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Yeah,
making up
so
for it
do I.
now.
Nothing passes me. Say what?
I'm making up for it now. So
you're halfway making up for it now, because when the book actually comes out, we'll get Richard here also.
I promise I will drag him online with me.
Yes, yeah. Do that. And, as you can see, this software that we're using, BeLive, is
Very fancy.
simple. But yeah, it is. I like it. By the way, Barbara, are we actually broadcasting? Okay, so we're actually, sometimes it gets weird on YouTube and Facebook, but both are working. Mm-hmm. So people are, in fact, typing there, I can see, because there's a little red dot where it says public, but you and I will ignore that. Barbara will monitor it. And when and when there are worthy questions or whatever, we will go in there and put them on the screen. But why don't we get into talking about the book at hand, or at virtual, because we have both ways. Gee, why is mine reversed and yours is straight? Now that's interesting. Okay.
Well, yours does not look reversed.
It doesn't? It's only on my screen.
Mine looks reversed.
That it's reversed. Okay. They both look fine. Yeah, no, Cassandra's looked great. So, why don't you give us why don't you give us a précis of what this novel is about? Novel.
How do I explain this? So a mermaid and a plague doctor leave a burning kingdom and they go into the woods. In the woods, they find children playing at slaughter. And these children lead them to 3 saints in the village. And they find, I think, a lot more than they bargained for, which is saying a lot, given what they are. I'm going to read from the first chapter of the book.
Okay.
Where?
All righty. I'm going to go bye-bye for now.
Bye.
Bye.
I pause. In the penumbra and the fading dusk were jetted by coral and gold. You could be forgiven for mistaking the ruined house a ribcage, the roof its tent of ragged skin. The foundation had a careless look could pass for bones, the door for a mouth, the chimney a finger crooked at the sky, or the wife who would not be a savior. Ash sleets from the firmament in soft handfuls of black, gathering gauzy drifts around my ankles. The sky is ink and seething murk, whispering secrets to itself. The clouds snarled like long, dark hair. I glance into the house. 2 of my daughters look back, eyes shining. They are seated astride a twitching form, its limbs too small to belong to an adult. Like cats, they croon to one another, even as they nibble their fins and fingertips clean. My breath snags. Only days old, but already they are the best of their parents. They have their father's full lips, his blue eyes, his son's warmed skin. And they have my teeth, my deep water hair, like the lures of the anglerfish spun into thick coils. Nothing sticks to those radiant strands, no amount of gore or mud, which is fortunate, given how messily my offspring eat. One fishes a gnawed down finger bone from her maw, flicks it to the ground. The other pounces, and for a moment I glimpse the fair circle of the victim's face, its eyes gouged, its cheeks flensed, its skull emptied of sweetbreads. Mermaids, especially those born half prince, leave nothing to waste. Of course, I forgot. You can't speak. My apologies. I look back. The plague doctor flutters a hand, voice strange behind her mask. Today they are dressed most austerely, plain black robes, a broad brim hat, the half skull of a vulture carefully bleached, an ornament that save for a single hieroglyph embossing its brow. Alone of my husband's people, what few remain after the apocalypse of my children's hunger. The plague doctor is not afraid, has not ever been afraid. Do you know where you're going? I considered the question. I toyed with the idea of going home. In my dreams, I still swim that soundless black, still travel as eddies of salt and cold nothing. My sisters are alive in these nocturnal fantasies, colorless, resplendent, their hair floating like a frothing of wedding veils. But those are just baseless images pieced together by the unconscious, invoked by a longing that's long since had time to turn septic. I've been on dry land for far too long. The depths would devour me, they would. Any creature of the air. Well, the plague doctor steps forward, fearless, eyes green as the humid, hated summer. I shrug. To my astonishment, they laugh. Such a pair we make. I don't know what I'm going to do either. What with the kingdom being eaten to nothing? The look they slide me, heavy-lidded sly, is so audacious that I soundlessly laugh in spite of myself. If you don't know where you're going, do you at least know what you plan to do? I shrug again. Over the snow-gilded mountains, I know there are kingdoms without number, pastoral and beautiful, each ruled by another prince or king, another czar and his court of calm-eyed lackeys, another man like my husband, beautiful and terrible and cocksure in the magic he teased from his bride. There, I could go there perhaps. Find another sovereign who'd fish a mute from the waters, who'd marry her, bed her, murder her sisters for superstition, and pry the teeth from her gums for the sake of caution. I could find one of those again, maybe, and wait until my daughters come to gnaw his country down to its bones. As so conscious of my musings, the plague doctor nods, their voice hollowed by the fluted bone. Even after all this time, I cannot tell whether they are male, female, neither, both, some gradient wicking between definitions. And you shall know her by the trail of dead, a harpy phrase. I smile at the music of it. How do you feel about company? I cock my head. A doctor is always useful, they tell me, fox coin. What do you say? I say nothing, of course. My husband cut the tongue from me when he discovered I was pregnant, braised it with 5 spice and saffron before feeding me the tender slivers. Animal meat was forbidden, but this his soothsayer had crooned with unsure pliance. But I smiled nonetheless, and his answer enough for my new companion. We burned the kingdom to cinders. Pillars of choking smoke rose from the bodies we heaped into neat stacks, stinking fattily, saltily of crisping pork. The plague doctor insisted. To leave the bodies as they were was to invite disease and epidemic that will rot the soil and infect the waters. What is the point of revenge if we can't enjoy it? And the plague doctor chuckled as they led me and my chocolate stippled horse, my husband's last gift before our children made a feast of him. A sullen getting who loathed him as much as I did from the smoldering ruins. I offered no reply, of course, and instead watched the smoke, like warnings of what would come. In winter, as in the spring, the taiga is beautiful. Pine trees and white spruce scrape at the sky, skinning the snow in strange pattern. There are smaller plants too, aspen and elder and birch, even colonies of withered ferns. Occasionally I catch sight of wolves in the tree line, sharks sleek and gray, of bobcats glaring yellow-eyed from some desecrated barrow, of foxes, their muzzles sodden and dripping with red. The plague doctor's breath plumes through the air as we walk. Mine does not. Though I hold no particular affection for it, the cold has never been a thing I fear, a fact that once amused my husband's court to no end. They made me promenade through the winter, my naked skin iridescent with frost. Still my companion insists on swaddling me in fur, woolly gloves, and a bearskin coat of unusual pallor. It will look strange if you weren't dressed for the weather, the plague doctor says in way of explanation as I fondle my gifts. The lining smelling of musk and frankincense oil. The fur itself is almost satiny, a delight to massage between my fingers. People would ask questions. I scanned the wilderness. There is no one but the hares and the badgers here, nothing but the trees and the quiet, the hawks and the whites, the unsleeping dead, burning forever, unable to rest, pacing spindle-limbed through the gloom. If there are men concealed in the boughs, they harbor no interest in our acquaintance, but fear of my plague doctor, perhaps. Or me. The plague doctor laughs, arsenic sharp, a bark of a noise, before crunching into a bright red apple. A stranger is an easy target, easier still when there are strangers here. If you had believed a former kingdom cruel, a place of treachery, let me assure you, that was the finest of our neighbors, the rest of them. Something of a smile emerges, a private amusement. Anyway, yes, the furs should help. At least until you smile. Your teeth will give us away immediately. The plague doctor murmurs as they chew, their voice softer, kinder. I'm surprised that your tongue didn't grow back with them. I shrug. The physiology of my species is protean, unmetered by logic. When we breed with angels, our children accrete feathers. When we lay with hurricanes, we birth storms, wind spirits with the voices of dead sailors. 1,000 mythologies contributed to my conception. Who can say which of them was responsible for this miracle? I shook the stump of my tongue. Enough had regrown so that I might separate bitterness from salt. My taste muscle briefly seared over my back teeth, tracing the needle-thin growths, and shook again, more pathetically than before. In answer, the plague doctor guffaws, a vulpine sound this time. There is no more conversation after that. We stopped once or twice to attend to the little shrines that dot the woods, half buried in the snow. Wax clogs their hearts like colored tendons, the corpse of 1,000 candles. Food rots without, untouched by the forest. I don't believe in souls, the plague doctor whispers at one point, voice husked. And I suspect the words are intended for someone else, some time else, a place and a moment as distant from the present as I am from the sea. The streaked feather, black as pitch save for its meridian of fire, from a satchel and place it atop the melted tallow, but just in case. A feather to fly them home. Dearest is the only feather made, the despoiled charcuterie, the mole-spotted breads. I do not ask why or what, or how the plague doctor expects the spirit to ascend on a single plum of ebony. Even if I had the voice to do so, I would not have. This is not my grief, the split from throat to belly, not my past to reconstruct from viscera and ice. And besides, who am I to speak on this? All of my kind are just souls with a cloak of skin and scales barely tethered to the act of living. We walk until the moon reaches its zenith, a cataract eye glowering from the star-drowned sky. Then at a clearing, a square of land, jagged old cairns and vacated graves, its denizens either cannibalized by the forest or changed by it. My travel mate declares, we'll stop here. I dismount with the plague doctor's assistance, out of courtesy rather than any actual need. Birth has not weakened me. If anything, it's done the reverse. But these small courtesies seemed to please my companion, so I performed his rites as a small concession. A trade, you might say, for services rendered. In the distance, something moans, low and displeased. A wolf, maybe, or a daughter of mine, sharp teeth and jeweled with onyx scales, already grown bored of her butchered kingdom. The stars blink out one after another, eaten by the rising fog. Still, whatever it might be, the plague doctor evidences no interest in its existence, divvying up our responsibilities with a non-committal authority. I am placed in charge of the fire of this evening's meal. The plague doctor tasked himself with everything else: defenses, the replenishment of our rations, the ablutions of my mouth. Mine are easier duties than I had anticipated, despite my inexperience with the world. My husband having kept me cloistered, a bloody jewel swaddled in the dark. I have an unerring sense of which branches serve better as kindling, and which are still green and wet at their heart. The fire comes quickly too, a flash of orange gold, lunging for me like a lover thrice denied. For food, I roast as the trout that my plague doctor supplies. The meat clumsily seasoned, some dry thyme, some basil crushed under a jag of rock, a rich spill of peppercorns. Before I stand cooked with too much eagerness, too little skill, and not enough sense. That's edible. I wouldn't worry too much, remarks the plague doctor later, as they pick chunks of blackburn meat from their share, first examining the charred meat by the darting flame light before tossing it into the snow. Once I whittle the ash away to eat, I devour mine whole, ash and bones and all. When we finish eating, we lapse into silence, one watching the other. The fog deepens, and the firelight smears orange across the plague doctor's mask. What? He laughed, low and rich. I wrap the bridge in my nose. Fingers rise to the vulture beak, trace the wicked swoop of its mandible. The mask? I nod. In all the time we've known each other, I've never seen the physician without a cover of another creature's shell. They laugh again, the sound refracted by keratin. Without a word, the plague doctor removes the mask and their hat, dragging fingers through a dense mass of close-cropped black curls. The face underneath is raptorial, sharp angles, a mouth predisposed towards wryness, the eyes glittering and thick-lashed. Not unattractive, not unhandsome, but curiously barren of the phenotypes that mark the human species, androgynous in a way that makes me think of dolls and polished hand-carved things. When the plague doctor turns the head, I see something else. Careful stitching along the jaw and cheekbones, the hollows of the orbital sockets. Stitching so fine that it could be almost invisible. Almost. They grin at me knowing. Their voice, too, could belong to anyone, any gender. You have questions? I take the mask from their hands and rotate the polished rostrum, fingers mapping its topography of ravines and muslin netting. Once this might have held camphor and dried flowers, a fragrance of cinnamon, glass in the eye sockets. But for some reason, the plague doctor saw fit to name the design. I wonder what the halving of it symbolizes. I'll trade you. The plague doctor slithers closer, their robes dragging across the snow. I inhale their scent, a dry, faint potpourri of herbs, bone meal, frangipani, and old letters. When they place their hand on mine, their flesh is warm. Strange how natural this feels, this configuration of fingers and dermis. When my husband buried now in the guts of our brood, it always felt like a violation, even his most innocuous caress. One question, for one of my own. I nod, letting go of the mask so I might lace our fingers together. You first. I cup the plague doctor's chin with the hand I have free, taking care to stroke the sutures ridging the flesh. And they laugh in easy reply. These, they ask. They detach my grip, so gentle, so cautious, aware in how our bodies fit, and place their fists on their lap, bodies slanted away, the long column of their frame held perfectly still. The plague doctor does not even breathe. Did you ever wonder why I took an interest in your person? And it's because we're not unlike you and I, we're both manufactured beings. Manufactured. Understanding prisons. With new eyes, I contemplate the variegation in their complexion, how some swaths of skin are lighter than their neighbor, how their fingers share no commonality in texture. Now, we're not very different at all. Even if one is fashioned with thread and dried sinew, the other cleaved and then conjugated by magic. My turn. What is your name? I breathe the cold, deep, and I place the sound, a guttural exhalation, made coherent by what low magic glitter is still inside me, and that the plague doctor is keeping. Myths are full of lies. This is not one of them. Names are like sulky skins, often carelessly attended, left in view of those who would misuse them. Utilized correctly, though, they can kill a man, can turn a girl to a thing of teeth and dead eyes, an appetite to devour worlds, can make infernos of maidens, phoenixes of bones, who have been asleep for so long they've forgotten the shape of rage. Names have so much power, enough even to hide a soul in the curl of a stranger's tongue. Hey, damn it.
Right there. 3, 2, 1. And there we go. It takes a little time, you know.
Hello.
And now I'm full size.
Welcome back.
There we are. Wow, coming through this pandemic and thinking about plague doctors and all that, it's really timely in a very peculiar way. When did you start writing this book?
Oh God, ages ago, long before the pandemic, actually.
Yeah, so there you go. But this is, isn't this a new imprint of Tor's?
Say that again.
Isn't this a new imprint?
Yes, Nightfire.
Yeah, Tor Nightfire, because Tor has presence in a number of places, and that's pretty cool that you got in there very early.
I got very, very lucky.
Yeah.
Nothing but Black and Tea found such a lovely home with them.
Yes. Yeah, they've been good to you, and vice versa. How many books do you have at this point? Not collections that you're in, but
like generally?
Yeah, novels on the cover, like 5, right?
9?
9. Wow.
I haven't kept track.
Yeah.
They're mostly novellas, so they're a lot shorter and a lot easier to write for that reason.
Yeah, you don't tend to write very long stories.
No, although I do have a new project that's just going to be a lengthy little bastard.
Oh, okay. And this is not the one with Richard Cadre. You're talking about something else.
There's another one coming. Can't say anything yet, obviously.
No, yeah, I could tell by the way that you were being a little fuzzy on the details.
Cheeky.
So, now something that I've been noticing of late is that a new bunch of writers like yourself, relatively new, people that have been emerging in the last 15, 20 years, have been coming out of gaming.
Mm-hmm.
And but that's a new thing. The games and the gamers have been around a lot longer than people who, when I asked Nora Jemisin, N.K. Jemisin, what brought her into the field, I was assuming she was going to talk about Cherie Renee Thomas's anthology of stories by people of color and this and that. And she says, oh, no, I was a gamer. And I've been hearing that more and more. And some of my favorite writers are gamers. It's Carlos Hernandez, another New York, not only another New Yorker, he might be another historian. But
No, they're in Queens, but in a different part of it.
okay, not my former part. I came from Jackson Heights.
Ah,
Okay, I lived like my first 40 years. God help me, my first 40 years in Jackson Heights, and I like Queens, but I like Brooklyn. I like where I am. Also, in Bay Ridge, we're 4 blocks from water. So,
it's just so far away from everything now. I remember trying to visit y'all. I was just getting lost on the trains, figuring out how to get here.
yeah, but we have an express bus that takes us right into Manhattan.
Oh, that's
And
lovely.
yeah, it really is, and it goes along by the water, so it's far more pleasant than the subway, and it's probably the same line where you are. We're on the R.
Yes, I actually no, I'm not on the R. I am on the N and the W.
Oh, okay. Part of which used to be the R, but people don't care about that. What are you working on now that you can talk about? Oh, and let us remind people watching, by the way, that if you type into the chat channel on either YouTube or Facebook, exactly, yes, right down there, we'll ask the questions for you. We don't have a huge live turnout, but that's okay because very often we've had smaller amounts of people, and then since it stays online, and are also eventually going to put it on the radio, yeah, I think we'll take this on the radio as opposed to force you into the station. Although that
I have such fond memories of coming in for Hour of the Wolf and just being startled by the fact that there were questions at 4 a.m. in the morning. That was at
yeah,
one point.
but I'm
I
not
remember
at
him
4
very
a.m.
distinctly.
anymore.
Oh, you have a
I'm
more
not.
reasonable hour now?
If you consider 9 p.m. reasonable, yes. Yes, I'm
Yes.
on. Yeah. Okay. Yes, I'm on Mondays at 9 p.m. Except when I'm preempted, which I was yesterday, because
For
it
those in
was
the chat who are not familiar, Hour of the Wolf, I believe the original time of it was 3 a.m. in the morning? 2, 3?
5
5,
5 to
yes.
7.
There was one of my interviews with you. I very gently fell asleep, and you were very kind to keep the conversation going until I woke up again.
Sort of used to that.
I'm assuming I'm not the only person.
No, but and there's controversy over what the Hour of the Wolf is. The definition I use is after the horror movie by Ingmar Bergman, which is basically the only actual horror movie that he made. I don't consider Virgin Spring, although it has a lot of terror in it, to be a horror movie. But this one is vampires and werewolves, Hour of the Wolf. And he spoke of a time that the ancient Romans believed that more magical things were capable of happening, and that more children were born, more people died, and he referred to it specifically as the time between night and dawn.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a sliver of time. And when Margot Adler named the show, the movie came out in 68. The 67, the show started in 1970. And we had just seen it at some local theater. But Oh, we have two questions. Oh my. Okay, we'll get to them in just a moment. Because what happened was that on Babylon 5, they came up with a totally different definition, saying the first episode of the fourth season was called Hour of the Wolf, and they misdefine it. They say it's 3 a.m.,
Sounds
and
so
that's
authentic.
how a lot of people think it's 3 a.m. But no, don't take J. Michael Straczynski's word on it. Take Ingmar Bergman's.
Oh, of course.
Okay, so let's see. We have a couple of questions. One from Ava Vitali,
Hi, Eva.
and you can put it on screen, Barbara. Oh, there it is. How much collaboration is there between you and the artist when it comes to the cover art for the books? And I must say, by the way, I really do like the cover art for The Salt Grows Heavy.
I've been exceptionally lucky with a lot of, well, at least recently, with most of my book covers, it was essentially a surprise. And they've always been great. Hammers and Bone, A Song for Quiet, The All-Consuming World, great covers. Just I didn't get any input in them, not very much at least. Nothing But Black and Teeth. Nightfire actually asked if I had a cover artist in mind, and I was like, yes, Sam Araya in a heartbeat. And it went off to awesome, which was how we got Nothing But Black and Teeth, which is some of my favorite covers. I wish it was less scary. It is so terrifying. I keep thinking I want a poster, but I'm going to wake up at 3 a.m., see it on my wall, scream and run into a cat. But The Salt Grows Heavy was exceptionally interesting.
It is.
Because we were allowed to choose between two possible artists for The Dead Takes the A Train.
Mm-hmm.
And Morgan, who did the cover, was one of the options. He didn't quite work for The Dead Takes the A Train, but I was in love with his art. I was utterly obsessed with it. And when the option came up to like suggest a cover artist, I was like, him, please. I want Sea Machine. I love his work. Oh my goodness. Please let me have a cover from him. And again, Nightfire said yes, and it was just an absolute delight. Also, this is Morgan's first book cover ever, and I'm stunned by this, given how good his illustration look and just how beautiful it is. And also, randomly, I know I'm just drifting from the question, but like just general shout out for the designers and Tor. They do such a good work with like the typography and the positioning of everything. It just makes the book. Sorry,
yeah, the people who work there give a damn. They are into the literature. They're into the genre. It's what they do. They have, was it 4 speculative fiction genres? Not even counting Tor.com, which is sort of an anthology in a way. They're on.
I think Irene, being in charge of so much of the art for so long, did such good things, given that her sense of style and design is just, it's perfect. And I think that
Irene
must have
Gallo
permeated
for everybody.
Irene Gallo. I can never remember how to pronounce the last name, so I was aware.
Yeah, it's like the wine, Gallo wine. And
yes.
Yeah. When you have chosen the artist, do you get to talk to the artist at all about ideas of what you would like to see on the cover? Or do they pitch to you? How does that work?
A little bit of both. Sometimes I get questions in regards to what I'm envisioning, but most commonly from my own experience is, what do you think is the most prominent feature of the book? What shines out to you? Mm-hmm. So I was obviously like, Blade Doctor, red, lots of skulls.
There you go. Let's see. We have 2 more questions. Well, one question and a comment. Marcy Arlen just finished your first novel.
Hello.
All-Consuming World, which I discovered, that's Marcy, discovered via Twitter. And I love the characters. Is there a sequel?
Thank you so much for that. I love the characters too, except Rita. Rita can continue to burn for all that I care. There is a sequel percolating in my head, but I am on contract for so many things right now, and it's not going to show up for at least a few years. Sorry.
Yeah, but the ideas are there. The
They
ideas
are.
are
The
perfect.
Dirty Dozen deserve. They deserve their very violent, happy ending. They've been literally put through hell and back. Those poor people.
And somebody else says that his first New York roommate was his good friend Denton Thor. Worked for me. No, Thor never worked for me. He was a WBAI producer, and he was my roommate for a little while. I haven't seen him in years. I hope he's doing well. So we'll leave it at that. Why mermaids?
Why not?
There's no answer to that. I love mermaid stories.
I wish I could tell you that there was something a lot more profound and deep about the choices behind choosing a mermaid, but really, I was on 9gag this once, and I saw this comic where it was essentially like, what if Ariel laid eggs? And it was just Ariel like being horrified and arrogant. And me being me, I kind of took it to its natural conclusion, which was a terrible place.
Yes. And knowing you, you're probably closer to the Hans Christian Andersen end of the Little Mermaid than the Disney end. Yeah.
Okay. Very much so. I think that is just how my brain functions at this point.
Yeah. Yeah. I had some other things to say about the Disneyfication of classic short stories. But then I'm not all that fond of a lot of Hans Christian Andersen either. I'm more of your Grimm fan.
The same here. Part I drew from 2 of the Grimm fairy tales for this book as well: The Three Surgeons and Some Children Play at Slaughter.
Ooh, those are obscure ones. Yeah.
I'm a nerd.
Yeah, absolutely. Marcy Arlen has 2 comments, which we'll try to concatenate. Well, one's just a comment, and she just says, "You do beautiful work with language."
Thank you.
To which I'll say, "Oh yes." And then, how do you find your vocabulary? Are they words in your head, or do you live with a thesaurus? And my question is, when you travel, do you have to pay for an extra seat for the thesaurus?
So here's a funny story. I actually speak English as a 3rd language, not a 2nd language, 3rd language. And I fell in love immediately with the language, with words, their meanings, the small intricate details behind them, the implications, how they connect to the landscape and all that. And I think between the ages of like 11 to 16, kind of around there, I just read the dictionary all day. It was not genre books. It was not science fiction, but I read the goddamn dictionary like it was a bestseller. And you do that enough at a fun for me. It is a and you do that enough, the words kind of just stick in your head and never go. I kind of run around with a thesaurus in my head because I have unnecessarily extensive vocabulary.
What were your first 2 languages?
Hokkien and Malay, actually.
The first one again, please.
Hokkien.
Oh, okay. I've heard of it. I know virtually nothing about it. Malay, of course, we know about.
Hokkien is still relatively obscure, I think, in part because most of the people who spoke it either went into Taiwan, where it just morphed into Taiwanese, or moved down to Southeast Asia. Most of the Southern Min people from China actually ended up there instead. And so not because everyone's like, we're in a trade route, lots of food, we're not moving. Not very many people floated off to Americas because why would you bother and risk the ocean?
And especially if you're in Malaysia or Singapore, some part of Southeast Asia, you have the best food.
Very much so.
Yeah.
Although New York does have urban hawker now, and it's wonderfully authentic.
Now, what's the name of it? Urban
Hawker, Hawker.
Urban Hawker. Oh, yes, I've heard of that once before.
It's so
But I
good.
don't really know what it is.
It's Southeast Asian food from top to toe, except for the one little Japanese place.
Okay, I'm definitely going to have to try it.
It's very good, very authentic.
Okay, good. Because I love that kind of stuff. Okay, no, I was just looking for more questions. Again, if you have questions and you're watching live, because the vast majority of people are going to see this over the next few years, you can type them in and we will ask Cassandra Khaw your question or comment or whatever it may be. How does being, I brought up the fact that your day job is writing games. How does that influence your fiction? Are they the same kind? Do they come from the same part of your intellect and wit?
Completely different places, honestly. When you work on games, so I work primarily at AAA companies right now. So the really big ones, like Ubisoft has like 4,000 people in Montreal alone. I think that's grown actually. So large 100-man, 200-man teams. And you realize that you're kind of a pit crew almost, trying to keep this one vehicle going, trying to build it as you go. And so you don't have any specific ownership over it, even though it matters to you and you want to do your best work. But you're all kind of part of a team, and everything you write, everything you do, it's not necessarily just in service of the story. It is in service of the work that the programmers are doing, the designers, the audio team, the art. You are trying to create an image that fits the collective imagination. And so when you do that, it triggers a really different side of the brain because you're problem solving in a different way. And also, a former boss of mine kind of put it really well. When you write for games, you write for three different categories of people at the same time. The first is the shooty, pew people. All they want to do is speed run through the game. They want to punch everything. They want to kill everything. They want to just rush to the ending and see how long it takes before they get there. They care about plot only in the sense that if it starts feeling illogical and the big moments don't make sense with the introduction and all that, they'll get cranky. But they don't really care about the detail. The second category are people who want to not necessarily rush through the game. They care about the story, they care about the cinematics, but they're not going to spend 80, 90 hours just digging into every single detail. The last category, of course, are the people who are lore hounds. They will go on Reddit and argue about what a single badge on the lieutenant's shoulder means, and they will have sprawling 100-thread Reddit arguments about it. When you write for games, you have to write for all three categories simultaneously. If you fail to service one or the other, your game has a problem. And the best games do that, and they do it elegantly. So entirely different from writing for books. Writing for books, it is me going like, look, if you really like very Baroque descriptions and people who like to mess around with language and a lot of body horror, you come here. You don't like it? I'm sorry. I do have a brand.
Yeah, I'm as you know, I'm not a fan of body horror, but I like your stuff.
I appreciate
The two names that come to my mind, body horror, that I actually appreciate are you, Cassandra Khaw, and Dr. Sunny Moraine.
Oh, so the Sunny has such lovely.
You know Sunny, don't you? Yeah.
Yes.
You know her and them.
Yes, I know them.
Yes. Okay. Yes. Didn't I team the two of you together in a reading once?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Years and years of reading. I think we're currently in either our 32nd or 33rd season of
Oh,
this
wow.
reading series.
How
And
is that?
yeah, and I started with it as a recordist with the very first one that Gordon Van Gelder put together.
Mhm.
And then we had different curators, um, all of them brilliant people. And at a certain point, I was thinking, okay, who can I get? Because Cherie Renee Thomas, who was the curator at that time, had decided that she had, better things to do, like run companies and do fabulous, fabulous work, and be. She just won some major, major award, but and deservedly so. But and I'm talking to her. Who should be the next curator? And she and Joe Monte, who was also a curator, said, Jim, you do it. So I've been the curator now, I'd say 15 years,
Oh, wow.
something like that. And we don't even want to talk about the length of time for Hour of the Wolf. It's in
I
its,
know how long.
you do know how long.
47 years, I believe.
Yeah. Add 7.
Oh, what? Oh, that was what 47 years was when you took over fully. You were working on that before that, weren't you?
I worked on it with Margot Adler, who created it. It was a 5-day-a-week show, and I was the engineer for the most part, and I did 2 days a week. And then she went away to Clarion, as a matter of fact, and I took it over at this point 52 years ago.
Oh, wow.
Wait,
Oh, wow.
yeah, it's been a long time. And we have to remind people, even though you're not here for WBAI, but we are listener supported. And now that I'm in a good time slot, support the station, especially when I'm on begging for money. And also help support this series, which is what Cassandra is pointing at, because it costs us, I would say about $30 for each one of these. I pay for the software that we're using, which is why we don't get Zoom bombed or anything like that. Makes it seem a little intimate for us, but it's great for the audience. And and there are a lot of tricks that we can pull. We've already been on for just shy of an hour, if you can believe that. And I'm going to edit this down into a radio show. So I'm just thinking, so what happened? Yeah, I just feel like saying, damn, Cassandra, it's been way too long. You disappeared and then I find out that you're living here?
It only happened 9 months ago.
And so you were like
Montreal.
moving around during the pandemic?
No, I was living in Montreal during that time. I did 3 years up in Canada working with Ubisoft.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. The day job. That was.
And then eventually I just, I needed to make a decision about where I was going to go. There were a bunch of options. I looked at Paris, I looked at Scotland, and then I looked at New York, which was like a 6-hour drive away. And I was like, well, this is going to be an easier option than the rest of it. Why the hell not?
Yeah.
And now I'm in New York and can never leave again because a cryptid will be sad.
And it's New York. So, we have so much from so many different places, but now we have you again. I'm very
Aw,
pleased
very
about that
sweet.
because yeah, well, you were. I'm not joking. You were traveling all over the world.
I was for 10 years straight,
Yeah,
a different continent every 3 months or so.
yeah. Just was that a conscious decision, or was that just I want to see the
Uh,
world?
it started out as I would get assignments in like the US and Europe, and then flying back to Malaysia was at like 30 hours plus
Ooh,
layovers and stuff. And I was doing it. I worked as a journalist for a while, and I was doing it for like I think 3-4 months before I eventually just went. I cannot keep doing 30-hour flights. I am losing my mind. And I realized I liked it a lot better when I broke the flights down like 7-hour flights. I would stop at a country I wanted to visit for a little bit, explore, see what freelance work I could do around there, keep going, and eventually I was like, I didn't want to stop, and I just kept going around and around the world. Um, Chasing better weather, following things that I like, assignments that I knew would come up each year, and just kind of planned a weird
a
itinerary in
new
my life around
cuisine.
it. A new cuisine. Oh God, I ate so much.
I think that's alone almost reason enough to just travel.
It was, I think, also just generally wonderful for my writing and my creativity. I don't think I would have gone into books or short fiction and things like that if I hadn't traveled so much. And my subconscious wasn't as full of other people's stories. When you stay just long enough to feel almost settled but not quite, you wonder a lot about the people you meet and you run into, what happens to them after that. I think Neil Gaiman is the one who talked about writing a story, and the key there is getting an audience to ask what's next and then what happens.
Mhm.
And that kind of got embedded in me from the travel, and now I am unspooling it over the years.
Got it. Yes, and he's another person who's done his share of traveling through the years. Been a while since we saw him in New York.
Has he been on the show before?
He did a New
Oh,
York Review of Science Fiction reading.
I don't know
That's
that. That's
I did
awesome.
not. I recorded it. I broadcast it, but I'm trying to remember which of our 9 curators curated that one. It may have been Amy Goldschlager, who's usually working with us on these, but tonight she's in Florida because that's the one place in the world she knows Trump will not be. But actually, it's because she's visiting her parents for Passover. And that involves good food, too. Do you cook?
Yes. And it was how I convinced a lot of my friends to let me stay a very long time in their respective homes, when you can make someone a three-course meal out of anything in your fridge and then you clean up tidily after that. No one ever wants you to leave. Everyone's quite happy if like
Yeah.
the little house goblin that shows up.
Yeah. What was it you who once actually came all the way over here in horrible, horrible weather to deliver some food you had cooked and then you immediately left?
Yes, that was actually me.
That was actually you because you were a phantom. We hardly saw you. You were snow bitten and all that,
I
and
think
it was
it
so good to
waddled
see you. And
inside
you 2
for like a
minutes later, you were
second and it
gone.
waddled off again.
Yeah, but I remember the food.
Oh, that's lovely. I appreciate that.
It was really good, but I missed seeing you. I've missed seeing you now. I'm so, even
Aw.
though it's through a screen at the moment, I
Aw,
know that
Jen.
you're on the same piece of land as I
I
am.
am
Brooklyn,
actually. I'm on the
yes,
right part of the world now.
yeah, Brooklyn and Queens are the western part of Long Island.
Hmm.
But Brooklyn was a city and Queens was farmland.
Hmm.
We have another question from, I hope I pronounce his name correctly.
They.
Last name is Szot, so I'm going to guess Zott.
Mhm.
Jonathan Zott asks, what is your favorite thing to do with duck confit? I
Um,
know the answer. It's eat it.
right now, I think it is duck cassoulet. I made some yesterday with smoked duck breast, chicken andouille sausage, confit potatoes, and confit carrots. And it was good.
I haven't had dinner yet.
I'm sorry.
And
Is this
talking about
not the
all this.
time? This is not the time to tell you I plan to make duck burgers after this with like caramelized shallots, candied jalapenos on like a Hawaiian roll with like some blue cheese.
Why are you doing this to me?
I don't know. I'm hungry too. If rarely I choose chaos, but
Ah,
I'm hungry.
yeah. So sort of hangry, as it were. Uh, well, it's we've been doing this now for 61 minutes. And unless you have anything very specific that you want to bring up, yeah, I do. Oh, yes, and there on the screen is a link to pre-order The Salt Grows Heavy. And if you buy it through that link, we get a kickback.
I do have one last thing to add, if that's okay.
Oh, please, please.
So Ava is a friend of mine and also an Egyptologist who knows the coolest things about Egyptian magic. I believe she does classes through Morbid Anatomy. I don't know if you're still ongoing or if you can buy access to it, but if you follow her and stalk her work, I totally recommend learning from her because she knows so many interesting things. That's all.
This is Eva.
Ava Vitali. She also
Oh, Vitali, right, yes. You mentioned her. I wonder what she thought of that Marvel TV series with Oscar Isaac, where he was playing.
I will ask Ava and I will let you know. Assuming
Yeah.
Ava was willing to answer a random question that I was posed to her on air by a stranger.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Do ask and do let me know because I
But
thought
yeah,
it was fun. He's a great actor, and it was different than most of the Marvel stuff. It had its own feel, and Ethan Hawke was a great bad guy.
I haven't watched it. Don't
It
spoil
was
it.
on, I guess, about a year and a half ago. And
I
I've
have a
always
lot of
named.
contracts I need to finish.
Yeah, I know, but there's. I've just discovered that one of the good things to come out of the pandemic was occasionally brilliant television, and sometimes it was put on hold, and sometimes it was being written. And I've only finally gotten around to Russian Doll, which I think you
Oh,
would
I hear
just
good things about that one as well.
say that again.
I heard good things about that one as well.
Yes. You don't want to describe it because it will give people the wrong idea. But this woman, played by Natasha Lyonne, who's a great actress, and she also writes and produces it, and all little things like that. There, she's running the writers' room. She lives in the East Village, very much an East Village character, and she's at her 36th birthday party. And as she's leaving it, she gets hit by a car and killed, and immediately goes back to where she was.
Oh.
So it's sort of you don't want to say it's Groundhog Day.
But it's not Groundhog Day.
Yeah, and that was the first season, and then the season 2 involved time travel down to and including a point where she actually is inhabiting her own mother while she is being born. It gets that.
Oh, I have to put that on the list.
And it's a comedy.
Okay.
So, yeah. So I've discovered I'm going to have to do a radio show just about that because it's brilliant. It's brilliant. That was one of the good things about the pandemic was prestige TV coming out. Although in
And
the
having
case
the
of
time
that
to watch
show,
it.
yeah, and having the time to watch it, exactly. There was a lot of free Shakespeare and stuff from the BBC flowing through everything. And they're cutting back now, but there's still good stuff out there.
Mhm.
It's not all gone. When are we going to see something that you have written on a screen?
Technically, I've written games that have been on it. Like, the games count. You can play a Batman game that has my writing in it.
I won't say they don't count, but I'm thinking more of like you adapting your own work or somebody adapting your work. There was recently a production of Kindred by Octavia Butler that got mixed reviews, but at least somebody finally got around to doing Octavia Butler.
Yes, I know. It's been a long time coming. I would love to see Bloodworm adapted into a movie as well, but I don't think Hollywood is ready for that story.
Yeah, it's not an easy one, but one never knows. Talk to your agent.
Mhm.
You should do that.
But there's been some conversation, but nothing has quite happened yet. But who knows? It might happen one day.
Ooh, yes, I certainly hope so. It'd be wonderful.
I don't know though. At the same time, Hollywood isn't big on practical effects anymore, and like there is way too much gore in my books. I think for most standard productions.
Oh, that's one of the reasons there's a lot that I don't watch because there's too much gore in a lot of what's being put on a lot of the channels. It's actually one of the things I will praise the Disney people for is staying away from out and out bloodletting. There's doom and destruction, of course, but it's generally bloodless.
I will say that I do have a problem with how much bloodletting is on screen and how it's presented. Because there is a certain amount of glorification that's going on there. Someone gets shot, someone gets stabbed, they make a loud noise and they fall down. There is never any focus on the realities of sustaining injuries of that nature. And just being confronted constantly with the Hollywood version of violence, I think it desensitizes people against actual violence, actual pain. The same way Twitter and just inundates you with bad news, and you just kind of get a little bit numb from it all. It's one of the reasons why the body horror in my own works are so vivid. I want to leave enough of an impression that the next time someone hears of something like that happening, they flinch and wonder and care.
Yeah, yeah, and again, that's a similar answer that Sonny Moraine might have given. I think the two of you are in a similar place in the kind of fiction that you write and why you write that particular type of fiction. And what you say makes sense. I totally buy everything about the desensitizing. And yet at the same time, a lot of the movies and stuff are fun and addictive. So, and that goes to good writing and good producing and all that. So there's been a bit of a renaissance, but yeah, the bloodletting has to lessen.
It has to mean something.
Yeah,
Same
yeah.
with everything else.
Yeah, if you're going to do it, it's got to have meaning, and that's been my problem for many years with films. Going back to the 80s, going back to the slasher films.
Oh, God.
Where it all started with John Carpenter.
Well, John Carpenter's The Thing was excellent.
Oh, a lot of his stuff is very good, but it's still very gory.
It is. He did have that love for practical effect. Although talking about gore and making it work, I think the first Alien movie did it exceedingly well.
Yeah, yeah. And I like the second one more. Than the
We will
first.
not talk about a fourth.
Oh, God, no. We won't even talk about the third. The whole point of the second film is to save this wonderful little girl, and then the beginning of the third film, they kill her.
They did that with Pacific
Why?
Rim as well, which was very frustrating.
Yeah, yeah. I couldn't agree more. Uh, I, I don't want to, but I think it's time for us to wrap.
Oh,
Uh,
it's all good.
and to just have you back on. Talk to Richard.
I will talk to Richard.
You owe me.
We'll
You
come back
owe
up.
me.
Yes, I owe you. I'm getting bullied live on the air.
Yep. And,
I don't have to be so honest about it.
Not for the first time have I done that to you.
It works on me.
Yeah. Okay, Barbara, could we see the link for buying the book again? We the magic link. It's not out yet. It's not coming out until very early May.
Pre-orders are very
But
good.
we're talking about Amazon. They'll sell you books that haven't been written. And they probably are. But this has been written, and those of us who are lucky enough to get review copies are holding it in the hand. And what's the exact publication date?
I think it's May 2nd. Oh God, it's 28 days away. I'm not prepared for this.
Nah, okay. And are you going to be doing any kind of touring for it?
I am. One such destination has been mentioned by the bookstore already. I'm keeping quiet about the rest of them because my publicist is still organizing and all, and I don't want to spoil the surprise.
No,
I
but
have
she
a
did
very
a
good
very good
marketing
job
team, and I
in
care about it.
getting through to me. And the moment I saw your name, she sent like a list of 6 or 7. I saw your name, I went, yes! and so here.
You saw your opportunity to inflict bullying on me.
Yes, and I had no idea where in the world you were.
I've
you
been
were right
very
here.
at work. Yes.
Yeah.
We will see each other again soon. But for now, we should wrap the show, and everyone should have noms.
Okay. And everybody should get pre-buy The Salt Grows Heavy, and there are another 8 books that you've written with wonderful short stories. And I'm such a big short story fan.
For those out there who are just kind of hanging out because Jim and Barbara are lovely, if you need a recommendation on which of my books to start with, Breakable Things. It's from a small press. You will get a selection of my short stories curated by the fantastic Michael Kelly. And it's a good place to start. But also pre-order this book, please. Pre-orders are very useful.
Yes, they are. So, okay, that was very good for you to mention that. And also, definitely support small presses. They deserve it.
You're very good. They do everything they can.
So we will do this again. You are forewarned. We may even do separately an Hour of the Wolf through the exact same means that we just change that little logo in the upper right, and it turns into an Hour of the Wolf logo that Chris Dykman designed. Yeah. So, Cassandra, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
It's so good to see you again, hear your voice again. And
Jim.
Well, when you were living in New York on a regular basis and the world was open, you'd come on the show at least 3 or 4 times a year.
I think I would count as a regular guest. Yes.
Yes, I would definitely say that. And hopefully between this and the virtual Hour of the Wolf, we can do that as well. So you're back in the loop if you want to be.
Definitely. But we should let these nice people go.
Okay. Yes, I guess so. They're already ordering their pizza or whatever. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and now we're going to put the book cover back up. Okay, the book cover grows heavy, and we say goodbye to me, and we put that still photo of Cassandra, who's not going to hang up, because we'll talk to each other. So bye-bye.
Bye.